In April 2025, a 145% tariff on Chinese imports brought U.S. ports to a standstill. Over $14 billion in cargo disappeared, leaving docks empty and store shelves bare. The port of Los Angeles, once bustling, now feels like a ghost town. Retailers are scrambling to stretch shrinking inventories, and behind the scenes, panic is brewing. This isn't just about delays, it's a looming supply chain crisis. Let's break down the key developments of this economic standoff and what it means for everyday Americans. Chaos has gripped the waterfront. The port of Los Angeles, America's Pacific trade powerhouse, is reeling. Cargo volume is set to drop 35% compared to last year. Gene Soroka, the port's executive director, says this isn't a slowdown, it's a full stop. Major shipping lines like Maersk and Hapag-Lloyd are scaling back, canceling sailings, or rerouting ships entirely. In April alone, over 80 West Coast sailings were scrapped, with more disruptions expected in May. At China's export hubs, containers are stacking up like abandoned cars. Some ships skip U.S. ports altogether, while others drift aimlessly awaiting orders. Unlike the pandemic-era backups caused by safety measures, this is a policy-driven freeze hammering cranes, customs agents, and trucking companies. Dockworkers are seeing fewer shifts. Cranes that once moved mountains of containers now stand idle. Even Gulf and East Coast ports are feeling the impact. Join us as we explore what's next for America's supply chain and how this crisis could hit your wallet. Despite a slightly broader range of origins, ports are now grappling with rerouted cargo, delayed customs, and lighter shipments. The Northwest Seaport Alliance reports incoming freight is down by as much as 30%, with some exporters scrambling to retrieve containers from canceled orders. With half of LA's port traffic historically linked to China, the disruption feels more like a tidal wave than a ripple. What's piling up at ports is already disappearing from retail shelves. Retailers are feeling the pinch as tariffs choke imports from China. Major players like Walmart and Target, heavily reliant on Chinese goods, are facing significant supply chain chaos. The National Retail Federation predicts a 20% drop in import cargo volume in the second half of 2025. With shipments stalled, retailers are burning through inventory fast. Industry expert Gene Soroka notes that most big-box stores have just 5 to 7 weeks of stock left. Shoppers may not see empty shelves yet, but they're already noticing fewer options and looming price hikes. Smaller businesses are taking the hardest hits. Jay Foreman, CEO of toy manufacturer Basic Fun, warns that missing seasonal shipments, especially for holidays, can turn valuable inventory into losses overnight. Inventory planning is now a high-stakes game. Companies are exploring new sourcing strategies, but switching suppliers mid-season is expensive and slow. While big retailers might ride out the storm, smaller ones are caught between rising costs and shrinking margins. Shoppers are seeing fewer choices in clothing, home goods, and electronics. Prices are holding steady for now, but experts warn increases are coming if the trade standoff persists. For U.S. retailers, this trade war is rewriting the playbook, and Q3 is shaping up to be a rough ride. Quick pause. If you're finding this breakdown useful, smash that subscribe button for more updates on supply chain chaos, trade disputes, and industry news. Now let's pivot to the bigger picture, the ripple effects on the broader economy. The $14 billion cargo shortfall and steep tariffs are hitting the U.S. economy hard. In the first quarter of 2025, GDP shrank by 0.3%, the first drop since 2020, signaling a slowdown in post-pandemic recovery. Transportation is taking a beating. West Coast ports are stalled, trucking routes are quiet, and rail freight volumes are down. Logistics firms are cutting hours, shrinking fleets, and furloughing workers. If container traffic doesn't pick up soon, layoffs could ripple to warehouses and retail hubs. Manufacturers, especially in the auto industry, are facing higher costs for components like electronics and interior parts. These costs are creeping into consumer prices, driving inflation in durable goods. Uncertainty around tariffs is freezing business decisions. Companies are pausing expansions, delaying hiring, and slashing investments. Confidence that surged after COVID is now fading as inflation, stalled investments, and choked trade flows take hold. The U.S. economy is on shaky ground. Even if tariffs were lifted today, recovery would take months. For now, the economic engine is sputtering with no quick fix in sight. This is pushing companies to rethink their supply chains. Can anyone replace China? With shipments from China slowing to a crawl, U.S. firms are scrambling to diversify. Southeast Asia, Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia is the go-to alternative. But scaling up to China's level is tough. Vietnam's factories are swamped, ports are congested, and labor is stretched thin. Thailand is struggling with quality control under surging demand. These countries lack the efficiency and scale China honed over decades. Shifting supply chains is neither fast nor cheap. Sourcing new vendors, ensuring compliance, and managing freight can take 1 to 2 years. In the meantime, companies face higher costs, customs delays, and shipment backlogs due to limited cargo capacity. Some tech and auto firms are exploring reshoring to the U.S., but high labor costs and red tape make it viable only for high-margin or automated sectors. For those relying on just-in-time logistics, even small delays can derail entire production lines. Diversifying supply chains builds resilience but sacrifices speed and efficiency. The shift away from China is in motion, but it's a slow, rocky journey. Behind the scenes, companies are grappling with uncertainty, and the future of global trade remains cloudy. The U.S.-China trade relationship is stuck in neutral. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent calls the tariffs unsustainable, yet no resolution looms. Beijing stays quiet, likely waiting for U.S. political or corporate pressure to break the stalemate. This deadlock is fueling what economists call structural volatility. Retailers can't plan reliably, and manufacturers are stuck balancing two expensive strategies. One for ongoing tariffs, another for a possible rollback. Capital investments are down, R&D budgets are being funneled into inventory stockpiles and risk buffers, and consumers are feeling the pinch. Product options are shrinking, seasonal releases are limited, and prices are climbing, especially for electronics, clothing, and furniture. Labor's taking a hit too. Warehouse hours are shrinking, hiring freezes are spreading, and prolonged disruption could spark job cuts. Meanwhile, global partners are watching closely. If U.S. trade policy seems erratic, countries may pivot to the EU or Asia-Pacific alliances, risking a permanent reshaping of global supply chains. If diplomacy falters, the U.S. could find itself sidelined in the system it once shaped. So, what's the takeaway from this chaos? The $14 billion cargo freeze wasn't just a hiccup. It was a seismic disruption rippling through America's ports, retail shelves, and boardrooms. Idle cranes, disappearing shipments, and economic uncertainty mark a moment where policy crashes into production. As manufacturers adapt, retailers brace for shortages, and supply chains move beyond China, one thing's clear. Global trade is undergoing a massive shift. The decisions made now by businesses and policymakers will shape the future of commerce and competition. Now we want to hear from you. Should the U.S. double down on tariffs or push for talks with China? Can Southeast Asia truly replace China in global manufacturing? Is reshoring to the U.S. a bold move or a pipe dream? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We're calling on gearheads, strategists, and weekend wrenchers alike. Smash that like button and subscribe for more supply chain updates. See you next time.